Welp, it's that time of year again, folks. Halloween is just right around the corner. And so, to keep the tradition, I decided to tell you all the new ghost stories that I come up with. Now, for those who stick with my channel for a very long time, might know that I had already made one. However, what you need to know here is that those were not my original stories. It was taken from other person that didn't really like the stories. At first I thought that it was actually a pretty good one, but he messaged to me that he didn't want to see it again. So I decided to do what he said. And from that day on, I had decided that I will come up with my own version of Ghost Trains, not taken from somebody else who don't like their own work. So, the stories that I'm going to tell you is from my home country, Thailand. And this story is almost true. It all started from one engine. Unfortunately, nobody knows who this engine's numbers is, since his records had been stripped away and had been lost. But two steam locomotive in Thailand remember his name. It might be difficult for all of you to follow and try to pronounce Thailand's name, but I'll try my best to pronounce it correctly for all of you. But before I tell you guys his name, we need to talk about his backstory first. And his name is not always a Thai, but he used to be a Japanese locomotive. His basis is a Japanese JGR C56 Mogul steam locomotive. They were designed by Hideyoshima, the JGR chief mechanical engineer at the time, who is also the person who built a Shinkansen bullet train. Over 164 of them were produced between 1936 and 1939. But unfortunately, without the records of the engine that is based in Thailand, we don't actually know what their numbers used to be in Japanese railway. All we know is its name, Shikuro. And again, not much of an info about this engine because the records have been lost. But from other C56 testimonies that based in Thailand, Shikuro was just like them, a hardworking, kind, and polite engine. Unfortunately though, not every C56 are like him. You see, Japan at the time is under nationalism rule, where they will suppress any non-Japanese nationalities and see themselves as the mighty. Some Japanese locomotives also see it that way. They saw that they were the most superior and powerful steam than the other steam locomotive in other countries. Shikuro, however, did not see it that way. He saw that the steam locomotive are actually machines that had different capabilities. For example, he is a Mogul type steam locomotive that were built to work on a branch line, not on the main line. To put it more understandable, they were built differently for different purposes. No matter what their nationalities are, they are still locomotive. However, there is a little interesting info about Shikuro. He did not like the landscape of his country. And no, it's not like he disliked his countries. He's proud of it. But it's just their geography. Most of Japan's geography is full of mountains, meaning that there is a lot of twists and turns and tunnels. And the line that he is based in is full of jungle. He likes to see the view, but he can't because of all the mountains in the valley he lives and all the bamboos and trees blocking. He also wanted to have a good long run too, just straight line without any curves and turns. He wished that he could be somewhere than his branch line, and his wish was granted. The year is 1942, and some of his siblings, including himself, will then be shipped to Thailand. Thailand during World War II did not invade by Japan. However, the Japanese forced Thailand government to join on the Axis side so that they could march their troops to attack British Malaya and Burma. And because of this, they need some workforces to transport troops and war materials. So they decided that they will import a locomotive from the captured territory and their own to work on the Thai railway. However, they will not be under the ownership of the Thai State Railway. Shikuro and his siblings would then soon be shipped to Thailand, and he was amazed by its landscape. Sure, his class were brought to Thailand just to build the death railway between Kanchanaburi, Thailand and Burma. But sometimes he did get an access to work elsewhere. Even though Kanchanaburi also have mountains, but there is a lot of straight lines and there is some plains where he could travel to. He really liked Thailand, not only just the landscape, but also the view, the atmosphere, the weather, and even the people. They're so nice here, just like Japan, but not really that nationalist at all. And even their culture, mostly on the cultural dress. In his mind, the Japanese dress is really look elegant, but for Thailand, it looks glistening and beautiful. Some of Thailand's locomotive also amazed him as well, especially the diesels. Yes, diesel exists in Thailand before other countries get to have a diesels. You find that the diesels are a really unique type of locomotive. They don't exhaust much of a smokes. They're quiet and they seems to align with the cars they're pulling, especially the passengers. Some of the diesels, that is. And some of the steam locomotive in Thailand that were built by Japan have striking resemblance to the Japanese as well, especially the Class DX50, that had a look almost same as the Japanese D51. Even though he's proud of his homeland, he really wants to stay in Thailand after the war is over. Unfortunately though, his second wish is not the same as the first. On 11th of February, 1945, 8 months before the Japanese declared surrender, American B-29 Fortress was on a bombing run on bombing Bangkok in Thailand, as well as other parts, to slow down the Japanese forces. One of these bombing runs is the bomb of the Chulalongkorn Railway Bridge in Ratburi. However, the bomb didn't explode when it dropped, but on the next day, around 6:30, it exploded, destroying the bridge. The Japanese forces has determined that there is no time in rebuilding the bridge, so they decided to build a temporary wood bridge just 5 meters away from the original bridge. They call in the local over 500 people to do a non-stop buildings from 3rd of April to 1st of May. And on 2nd of May, the bridge is open. However, due to the rush buildings, it could easily worn out. And just 3 weeks later, it couldn't withstand it anymore. On 20th of May, Shikuro, who now go by the name of Khun, is delivering a freight train to Kanchanaburi station. And he had to cross the temporary Chulalongkorn bridge. He was about to cross midway through the bridge, but due to the weight of his train, with the worn out structures of the bridge, and during that time is also a rainy season with a strong current happening, it happened. The bridge collapsed beneath him. Almost all of his entire train plunged into the riverbed. Unfortunately, none of the locals were nearby the accidents, so the Japanese did not know about the wreckage. And even if they knew, it probably wasn't in time, because on August the 4th, the Americans dropped the atomic bomb, and the second one on the 9th, ending the war. When Khun is in the water, he pleaded and begged that someone would bring him out. He don't really want to die. He believed that there is still life ahead of him. But unfortunately, it never answered. That is when his sadness turned into anger. He believed that they had abandoned him. Since there is over 100 of him, he thought Why would they bother to rescue him when there's still identical design as him still working around? And this made him regretted the words that he just said to the other engines that are nationalist. They are just machines. A machines that only purpose is to serve. After the war, some of Khun or Shikuro siblings would then be shipped back to Japan, while most of the others remained in Thailand. They would then be worked for the state railways of Thailand, repairing infrastructures from the war, and later retired by 1977. Only 9 C-56 Mogul were preserved, 2 being in operational condition. That is numbers 713 and 715, both named Phoo and Phoo respectively. They were nicknamed the Donald and Douglas of Thailand because these two were always working together like Donald and Douglas in the valley. Phoo and Phoo knew who Khun is. They were not close with him, but they were almost close enough to consider him to be the third twins. When they realized that Khun never reached Kanchanaburi, they were deeply concerned, and they were about to report this to the supervisor, but he was nowhere to be seen. And even if he was there, would he even care? Both of them really wished that they could find Khun, but they had limited resources to do. They did actually hope though. They were in Thailand for a very long time, and the Thai people believe in superstitions. They believe that one day, the people we care about will return to say goodbye as a spirit. However, they did get to see him, but not in the way they thought. All of this happened before they were retired. It all happened on 20th of May, 1955, 10 years after Khun incident. Phoo and Phoo were taking a freight train at night when they were going to cross the Chulalongkorn Bridge when they heard a JNR 5 chime whistle. Both of them stopped midway at the Chulalongkorn Bridge, and they were understandably confused. Fearing that there is another engine on the line, they whistled back, but the engine that whistled did not respond. They probably thought that it was just an engine behind them, or maybe there is another engine at the station at the other side of the bridge. They were about to continue their way until a bright light flashed into Phoo's face, almost blinding him. And then there is a loud whistle with the sounds of an engine puffing towards them. Both engines tried to back up, but the trains are too heavy. They had no choice but to tighten their eyes shut, waiting for the imminent crash. And then silence fell. Phoo slowly opened his eyes, followed by Phoo. Both engines are understandably confused and terrified. They thought that there is another engine on the lines, but there just isn't. It just vanished into thin air. Both engines didn't say anything and continued on along the line. They then returned to their sheds in Kanchanaburi, and they didn't say anything to any other engine or the controller, because they knew that what they saw is unbelievable. But there is a question that's still lingering in their smoke box. Who and what was that engine? The answer certainly took its time to come. Years went by, and more people started to settle in Ratburi, and it would then soon later to become the new capital of the province Ratburi. And this is where Khun's sighting began to be spotted. People that lived nearby the railway have reportedly seen steam engines running at night. Some can only hear the steam engine whistle, others reportedly seeing a bright lights coming down the line. These were then soon later went to the railway board, who then confirmed that there is no longer a steam engine operating at night, only the diesels. But the people were convinced that they heard and see the steam engine running. But what's more creepier is that sometimes they could hear a bridge collapse with the steam trains plunging into the river. They all came to investigate, calling the inspectors and the authorities, but they never see anything happens. The bridge is not collapsed and there's no signs of a train wreck. Nobody were able to answer what just happened. That was until years later, someone stepped out and explained everything. An anonymous person stepped out and explained the local of what actually happened. He had heard this from his uncle, who had told him about a Japanese train that fell from the Chulalongkorn Bridge. At first, people were skeptic about it, but as the spottings become even more and more often, people began to believe in his stories. The local had decided to call the monk from their temples to perform an exorcism, but every time, the ghost kept appearing. So the locals had finally came to conclusion to stop the ghost from roaming around the rails, they need to find its body. And finally, on 13th of April 2005, the body of the engines had been confirmed by a group of scuba divers from an engineer corps. Years went by, and Khun In's body is still under the water. There are several plans in recovering his body, from building a glass dome under the water to observe the locomotive, and getting a crane to lift up the engines. However, due to the risk of the bombs and the engine structure, none were able to lift the drawing boards. And even after they constructed a new suspension bridge, Khun In's body is still under the water, with no signs of progress. As for the Thai C-56 twin, they had learned about Khun In's body, and they were deeply saddened that they were unable to recover his body. His ghost is still roaming around today, trying to find peace. At least, that's what they actually thought about. They wished that they could go to the bridge and talk to him as a spirit. However, that seems unlikely, since they no longer work, as they are now been demoted to an excursion train. Only work in Kanchanaburi for only just one time every year. Many people in Radburi, Thai rail fans, and the Japanese rail fans and the historians try to find the document and the records. However, to no avail. People had tried all sorts of ways to make Khun In's spirit find peace, but Khun In's sightings still go on, and every year on the day of his accident, he will always try to cross the bridge to the other side, but he never did. And according to the legends, this only happens in his anniversary. In any other dates, however, he could freely roam around, crossing the bridge. And unfortunately, some people have reportedly seen a dead body on the lines. They believe that this person had wandered the tracks, tried to spot Khun In, but he was blinded by the bright lights and was unable to move away in time. Some people even suffered eyesight damage. Over the past years, people in Radburi had come to pay respect for Khun In. However, some had suspicions in Khun In's spirits, saying that he probably turned into a demon and would try anything to kill anybody in his way. But nobody believed in those rumors, however. But they were still yet to be determined, and Khun In's story had later evolved into the legend, speak among the rail fans and the Radburi people. And as the old saying goes, every year on the day of his accident, he runs again as a warning to others. Try to cross the bridge, but never reach to the other side.